Hello, I'm Rocky Chapin, President and CEO of the Benedictine Health System. Thank you for joining me as I give our third annual update on the state of the Benedictine Health System, or in our case, not the State of the Union, but the state of the ministry. We'll have a little bit of a look back on 2016 and a look forward for 2017. We have a lot to remember from 2016. We began the year, I guess I would call it, in a financial hole. We were losing money, over $1 million in losses through December of last year, but we are already beginning to see what we have experienced through most of 2016, an improvement. So much so that as I speak to you now, we have almost $2 million in gains, in excess revenue over operating expenses. That is a very significant turnaround, and I want to thank you for all of your hard work. Now, that was no doubt aided by a couple of things. First and foremost, I want to acknowledge that we had a rate increase from the state of Minnesota for Medicaid services. That was a significant contributor, almost $12 million in new revenue that came into the organization, allowing us to provide raises in Minnesota for the first time in 4 years, to increase the benefit level a little bit, to be able to retain, attract, and even recruit back some who had left us during the previous year because of perceived low wages, or in some cases, actual low wages. But as a result of that rate increase, we've been able to accomplish much and has provided us with some badly needed resources to do the work that we need to do in attracting new people into our profession. The other thing that we did is we focused ourselves on results and wanting to make sure that we were doing things that would help us be more efficient. You may remember them. We had 4 initiatives: charging for what we do, collecting what we charge, managing our labor so that it matched the demand. In other words, making sure that our labor hours per resident day were in good order, and making some hard decisions about transitioning communities that were in a loss situation, and for all of our best efforts, we could not make them go. And as a result of those 4 initiatives, we have seen some pretty significant improvements, as I noted, with a better than a $2 million excess of revenue over expenses so far this year. December, I expect, will be a little softer and won't continue the gains of the first 5 months of this fiscal year. Our census is down, but our census typically is down in December. So it's a little bit of a half step back perhaps, but I think we are making very good progress in that regard. For 2017, we have 4 new initiatives that we're focusing on. The first is reducing readmissions. This is an important piece for our own reimbursement in the years to come, but it's a current important piece for those who make referrals to us, particularly for transitional care. The acute care systems that make referrals to us will be penalized a couple of percent actually of their revenues, Medicaid or Medicare revenues, if they have readmissions occurring within the first 60 days, 30 days, or 90 days. Depends on the organization and the program in which they are enrolled. But that is an area in which we need to focus on, and Dr. Budenseek and Deb Graves are leading that for us, really making a focus on advanced care planning, on palliative and supportive care, on use of the Interact tool so that change in status can be more closely monitored. So that's our work in reducing readmissions. The second area is increasing census, really making sure that we have all the pieces that we can use to support improving our census in both our skilled nursing facilities and our housing facilities. It's a lot about marketing, it's a lot about sales, it's a lot about making sure that we are as responsive as we can be to referral sources when they approach us. Recruitment, retention, and onboarding, these are so important for us. Last year we actually had a recruiting trip into the international market where we've recruited over 40 RNs to join us in practice in the coming year. Most of them will be joining us from the Philippines, but from other countries as well, sharing with us their gifts and helping us move forward in many of our communities. We also are doing a lot of training development so that we can make sure that as people come on board, that as people begin their supervisory responsibilities, if they're new to it, or even as seasoned leader, that we will have programs to help them manage and lead even better than they currently are. And finally, decision support is one of our initiatives. We need more information, more and more information, and it needs to be useful for us. You'd think it would be as simple as, well, just give us the reports that we need. Well, one person's report is another person's garbage, as it turns out. But what we can do is we need to make sure that the data structure, the ways we organize our our data, allow us to turn it into information in an efficient way. And so that work is continuing, led primarily by Bill Krantz, and you'll be hearing more about that as the year unfolds. I want to acknowledge we had leadership changes in the last year. Our Chief Operating Officer left us in mid-year, and after several months of evaluating our options going forward, we have concluded that we will not be replacing that position. We have brought the operating vice presidents onto the senior management team, and we are currently in discussions to discern what is the best way of organizing their responsibilities going forward. And so that is work that we are hoping to have ready for you in March. This isn't something that just happens and someone like the CEO says it shall be. That could happen, I guess, but that is not your CEO's style in terms of bringing people around a common goal. Deb Graves joined us. Deb Graves is our new Chief Clinical Officer, comes to us with a lot of experience and has proven to be a very collaborative and open thinker, and bringing with her a lot of years' experience, but also a style that is resonating with our organization. Work continues for the recruitment of a Vice President for Home and Community-Based Services. Many of you recall that about a year ago, Bobby Guidry left us, and it has taken us a long time to fill that position. We first of all had to evaluate the position to understand, was Bobby doing all the things that we needed her to do or we needed to be done? And we made some modifications to the job description. That took us a few months. Then we also began the recruitment process. We've interviewed in initial interviews, we've interviewed over 8 people, and we are down to the final 2. In fact, those interviews will occur tomorrow, and I'm hoping within a few weeks we'll be able to make an announcement of a new Vice President for Home and Community-Based Services. In terms of strategic planning, this is a topic that I like to talk about because it seems like we are forever planning strategically, but I think we are getting much closer to that. The Board of Directors formed a strategy committee a little over a year ago, and it has been meeting on a regular basis since and has guided the senior leadership team in the formation of our 2020 vision statement and the work that we are doing now on action planning. So we have a vision statement. It is available on eSource. Looks like this, the cover, and you recall that we earlier we had one that had the prow of a canoe and a northern lake view. And what we wanted to do was to change the cover to illustrate some of the changes that are inside. And part of that is this sense of building community. We were able to change the mission statement, and the Board of Directors considered this and approved it in their November meeting. And so the mission statement now reads, "We witness to God's love by creating compassionate communities, providing support to those we serve to live fully and live well, with special concern for the underserved and those in need." So we retain our mission and our ministry to the underserved and those in need, but you'll notice that we focus now on compassionate communities, providing support, not just care, which is what we had in the previous document, but now it's providing support so that people can live fully and live well. The other piece of this is that we want to emphasize this is also for those serving. That sense of a compassionate community isn't simply focused on those we serve, but also those serving. Because when we live in community together, we think we can accomplish more. The other change that we made is in a statement we parsed out of the older mission statement that included a who we are statement. And so we created a separate statement of who we are. We are the Benedictine Health System as a Catholic faith-based organization entrusted with advancing the life-enhancing senior care ministry of the Benedictine Sisters of Duluth, Minnesota. What you'll notice there in that change is it's less of an emphasis on healthcare and more of an emphasis on life-enhancing senior care. The intent, the purpose of that, is to acknowledge that more and more of the people we serve want to be served within a sense of community, in their own homes if possible, but if not, in communities that aren't necessarily just care providing, that they're life enhancing. And we think that's a significant change, and one that opens us to more possibilities as an organization and options of service that we can provide. Our vision statement didn't change. We are still about creating Benedictine living communities where health, wellness, and choice come to life, and our core values of hospitality, stewardship, respect, and justice will remain. There is also a change in sponsorship that has been decided by the Benedictine Sisters of St. Scholastica Monastery. Many of you know, but some of you may not, that our not-for-profit status is derived from the fact that we are on the official Catholic directory. In other words, we are a part of the Catholic Church, and that is how we derive our not-for-profit status. And so this sponsorship is an important element of how we retain our identity and gives us direction going forward. The sisters had very specific reserved powers that our board of directors had to go to them for final approval. Things like appointment of the CEO, things like any changes to the mission statement or vision statement, additional debt that we would enter into, all of those had to be approved by the sisters. And now taking that place is called a sponsor council. The sponsor council has some additional lay people on it, so it is comprised of 11 people. The prioress is one of those 11. The others are 3 sisters, 4 lay people, many of them former board members of the sponsored entities, so from Essentia Health, Benedictine Health System, and the College of St. Scholastica, and the 3 CEOs of the sponsored entities. So myself for Benedictine Health System, the president of Essentia Health, and the president of the College of St. Scholastica. As a result, this is the group that takes over sponsorship. There is still a few very limited reserve powers to the community, but most of the work of sponsorship will be done by this group. Its first meeting is scheduled, will be scheduled in March, and it enters into a new era for us. And finally, I want to close with an encouragement to participate in the Mission and Values Survey. It's an important survey. We learned a lot from it. For instance, last year, one of the issues we identified is that there was a lack of trust on the part of many about the direction of this organization and the way that it was being led. That triggered a series of meetings that I had, along with Kevin Rymanowski, with many of our administrators, to explore what that meant and why that was. And I think we had very frank conversations. I know we had very frank conversations, and as a result, the senior leadership team is now making its decisions with that lens, that new sense of understanding of what's important for us going forward. And so that is but one example of the many kinds of things that we learn as a result of your responses to the questions in the Mission and Values Survey. I close with the best wishes for 2017 to all of you, and to thank you for your service to the ministry that we share. Seniors is a noble profession, as once told to me by a colleague, and in that nobility, let us serve with distinction. Thank you so much.